Okay.
We're on. Yeah, we're on. I'm just going to introduce you. This is Johnnie Gray, who is a saxophonist and many things besides. So, right. Johnnie, yeah. So you started when you were 7.
Well, I'm 91 now, so I'll go right through the bloody lot for you, shall I? I started when I was 7 because my mother and father divorced, and I was put to a school where the curriculum was that we had to play piano. I didn't like it too much, but in other words, I was forced to play the piano, which I'm very glad, because the amount of chord work I learned from then was marvellous, which stood me in my life, in the latter part of my career. But all I wanted to do, and in the 30s I used to listen to the big bands every night on the BBC. All I wanted to do was to play the saxophone. So I said to my mother, I said, well, I want a saxophone. She says, you're not going to get one because you'll get tuberculosis. I said, don't be ridiculous, you know. So she bought one for £4 and said, you'll have to pay me back a threepence a week till you've paid for it. And I was only 11 at the time, so I got it. Now, you must believe this, I played that saxophone. After 10 days I did a school concert and I played a tune. In other words, I was a complete natural. And,
yeah.
And you know, I could say it now at 91. I picked it up. In 10 days I could play the saxophone. Now, but then gradually I was then put to an apprenticeship, as I was born in Coventry, where I became an indentured engineer, which also stood me in marvellous for the rest of my life. I always did my car repairs, and I also did my saxophone and clarinet repairs, which kept me on the road. But then I hated the job there because they were always on strike, and my mother and father said, you've signed a contract, we've signed a contract, you will not go on strike, you will honour that. That stood me in for the rest of my life. All the time I was a professional musician for 70 years. I was never late, I never broke a contract, and I never broke my word. And as a result I was made a freeman of the City of London, which I'm terribly proud for. Now then, the only way out of that reserved occupation job was to go into the Air Force as an air crew or submarine. Well, I was too big for submarines, thank goodness. So then I went into air crew and became a pilot from 1938, and then I was discharged at the latter part in 1941, and then that enabled me to become...
Hang on a minute, Johnnie. Just quickly, what did you do in the Air Force?
Oh, I was a bomber pilot, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was put... we were all put to fighters, but fortunately I was too big from my backside to my head, because they couldn't close the aircraft on me. There were hurricanes at the time, and unfortunately all the men I joined up with were all killed in hurricanes. That was before the Spitfire. So then I had to go on to bombers, but they put me on, as I was an engineer, they put me on to a certain amount of tests, which I did. Now that enabled me then to become a professional musician. I was clear...
What you left the RAF, what happened?
1941, oh yes, I was discharged at grade C. Now you had to be a volunteer for air crew, and I was because I was just unfit for air crew. That was at grade C. So when I'd only been home in Coventry for about a month, and I got my army papers. So, and I was called up.
But you were shot. You were flying.
I was damaged. I was injured. Yes, my legs were gone. They're still gone now.
What happened?
Well, I had a crash landing, which did my legs in, and also did my uterine as well.
Right.
Anyway, then
you were saying that what was the aircraft that shot down your?
A Fokker-Wulf.
Okay.
Yes.
Came from underneath.
Yes, that's correct. And then. That enabled me to become a professional musician. I was clear of all military service, which was the bit of luck that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I got the job, and I went to Lou Praker's band. I did the audition on the Tuesday afternoon. I came down from Coventry I had £10 on me. I came on the bus or something like that, and I did the audition in the afternoon. The Lou Breaker says, right, you could start tomorrow. And I read the parts on side because I became a top session player. I could read anything on side, transpose anything. So in other words, you're worth your weight in gold. So then, but one thing that I did lack, I went into the pub next door and drank all my money away. I got no money for digs, so I slept under the arches in Ravenscourt Park in Hammersmith. It was a beautiful day. I strapped my tenner to me and I slept there, and I went and started the job the next day with Lou Prager. The job was worth £9 a week, where I stayed for nearly 4 years. Now there I worked from 3 till 6, from 7:30 to 11. That made me a very powerful embouchure, and the diaphragm was formed. And of course I was smoking a lot after the Air Force. I then realised that smoking was no good if I was going to be a professional saxophone player. So I went to bed one night. I was smoking 70 a day. I stopped and I never smoked again. That's one good thing. So that improved me. I became a very powerful blower then, and I could sustain notes. I could sustain a 32 bar chorus in one breath. You know, I could swim a length in the bars underwater, no problem at all. That was all control, which you need if you're going to be a world-class session player, which I became.
Can you talk about, Scott, would you like to talk about the sessions now, or the bands that you played in?
Then I was offered a job by George Shearing to take over. George Shearing's quintet took over at Hatchett's restaurant. They took over from Stefan Grappelli, and this was a big rise up in profession for me, in status as well. George Shearing, you see, and that was a wonderful group. Now, whereas I'd been playing all those hours every day, this job was 2.5 hours. George paid me £15 a week for 2.5 hours. I couldn't believe it. Because then that enabled me in the daytime to start doing sessions and things, which I started doing, and I was becoming very popular for sessions. You know, the first one I did was for Vera Lynn, and that was a Decker's. But then, after then, I was building a great reputation, and then Ambrose and his orchestra came on to me, so I joined that orchestra. That was the top orchestra at the time. And then Ted Heath formed his band. Ted Heath, we didn't think he could make it, but he was such a fabulous musician, but he expected everybody to read on sight. He hadn't got time for rehearsing and all that, and he got all the best guys, Kenny Baker and Jack Parnell and myself on tenor. Anyway, we formed, and that became, in my opinion, the greatest band in the world. Now, at the London Palladium, we were doing the swing sessions, the Sunday night concerts, and we had guest artists: Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, Dean Martin, and then later on I was doing sessions with Tom Jones, his first big record. He was a beer drinker. We got on well. And
I'm going to cut it here because it's going to get too long, and we're just going to make a